Hey guys, my name is Tensor. Welcome to another Flutter video tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at how we can monetize our applications using Google's Admob platform and the Firebase Admob plugin. If any of you guys have ever built any kind of mobile application, you'll be familiar with Admob. It is a platform that is created by Google that allows you to embed various different advertisements into your applications. Now, on my screen is the most complete application that we've built in this series of tutorials thus far, and that is our minesweeper application. You do not need to know anything about the code of this minesweeper application for this tutorial, so don't worry if you haven't watched that series of videos. All we're going to do is add these advertisements to this application so that they'll pop up after the user has completed a game so that we can quote-unquote monetize this application. To get started with Firebase Admob, we just need to add it to our pubspec YAML. So Firebase_Admob, and the current version as of the recording of this video is 0.5.2. Just so that you guys are aware, this plugin is incomplete, so there are some features from the Admob platform that are not fully implemented into Flutter just yet. That being said, we can add full-featured banners and interstitial advertisements into our application. So normally if I was going to add this type of functionality to a larger application, I would build out a new inherited widget and then inject the state into the various pieces of the application where I needed it. In this case, because we only have the single page, it makes things a little bit easier for us. First, let's make our import for Firebase Admob /Firebase Admob. The Admob platform uses what's called a application ID as sort of an API key to basically identify whose application has which ads inside of it, and you can also use the Admob platform to specialize these advertisements. Now, because this is the case and because these keys are pretty confidential, I've put mine inside of a file called app_id.dart as a constant string. So naturally inside of our main file we'll need to import that app_id.dart file as well, and we'll have it show the actual variable that I created, which is called app_id. We want our banners and our advertisements to appear in front of our board, so we're going to create most of our logic inside of this board stateful widget in the BoardState class that extends it. To kind of generalize our advertisements and give them a bit more direction, we can create what's called a mobile ad targeting info object. This allows us to add things like keywords, the birthday of the users, the gender of the users, and things like that to further specialize the types of banners that we want to show up in our application. So for the first property in this object, we're going to specify test devices. And in here, I'm putting in my app ID. Of course, I want to check to see if the app ID is null first. And if it isn't null, then we will just pass in the app ID inside of a list. Otherwise, we'll pass in null. For our keywords, we want keywords that identify the types of users that will be playing this application, as well as the application itself. So I've put in games and puzzles. And of course you can extend this as long as you want. If I hover over the mobile targeting info object, you can see there are quite a few different fields that we can add here. So aside from keywords, we also have this string called content URL. So we can pick a URL that we want this game to be associated with. We can put in the birthday, which is the average birthday of the current user, or the birthday of the current user. So if for whatever reason we have that information, we can plug it directly into our application, and we can do the same with the gender. We can also specify if this is an application that is designed to be family friendly, so designed for families, as well as child detected. So these are two booleans that we could set to be true so that no child-unfriendly products will be advertised in our application. Since this is a simple Minesweeper application, we're just going to set up the test devices and the keywords fields. For our application, we want both a banner ad and an interstitial ad. The banner ad, of course, is an ad that can sit at the top or the bottom of our screen and just kind of sit there while the user is playing. And then the interstitial ad can be deployed after the user has finished playing, and it will take up the entire screen. To make things fairly easy on ourselves, we'll create a function called buildBannerAd, which will return our banner. We can specify the ad unit ID, and this is something that you can manipulate inside of the Admob console a bit more. So if you want your banner to show specific advertisements, then you can link it up with a specialized unit ID. Now, because this is just a test application, we're going to link it up with a unit ID called testAdUnitID. We can also set up the size, and you can see here there are quite a few different sizes that we can choose from. We have a normal banner, we have a full banner, a large banner, a leaderboard, a medium rectangle, and a smart banner. I'm just going to go with the banner for now, but some of the other ones are nice. For instance, the leaderboard is sort of like a larger rectangle that can take up most of the screen, and the smart banner will change itself based on your layout. These can be fairly useful for various different situations. Inside of our banner ad, we can attach a listener, and the listener takes in a callback function, which takes in a mobile ad event. We can then take and use this mobile ad event to do various things to our banner ad. So in this case, I'm just checking to see if our event is mobile ad event.loaded. And so when the banner ad has been loaded in the background, we can then call show on it, which will then show the banner ad. We can also check to see if our banner has been clicked or it has been closed, and we can use this type of logic to basically figure out what types of ads our users like and which types of ads our users dislike. For our listener, all I'm going to do is print out the event because I have plans to do a bunch of other things in the other parts of our application. Now let's create a function to build out our interstitial ad. Like with our banner ad, we want to assign an ad unit ID to this particular interstitial ad. And because we're just testing Admob, we're going to use the testAdUnitID. For our interstitial ad, we're going to insert the targeting info. So we just take our static final targeting info, and then we can put it into the targeting info field. We could do the same for our banner ad, but it makes more sense to do it for an ad that will be full screen versus an ad that's just at the bottom of the screen. Again, for our listener, we're just going to print out the event. We want to set up a bunch of things inside of our initState function. Currently in the initState function, we're just calling the resetBoard function, which is what builds our actual board for our application, as well as resets the game logic for the application. Let's initialize our Firebase Admob object. So we get an instance of it, and then we can call a method called initialize, and then we can pass in a testing app ID to signify that this is just a testing instance of our Firebase Admob object. Before we actually show the advertisements, we need to load them. So what we can do is we can take the variables that we created at the top of this class, and in our initState function, we can then call our buildBanner and buildInterstitial functions to put those widgets inside of our variables, and then we can call the load method on the result of that. This will then load the banner in the background so that when we call the show method, the banner will be ready to be shown to the user. We can do the same for the interstitial add. So we just say interstitial add, build interstitial add, and then we call the load method on it using the cascade operator. There is a third type of advertisement that we can put inside of our application. This is what's called a rewarded video ad. Now, I'm not going to be using this type of ad inside of this game, but this is the type of advertisement that you would use if you just wanted a video that would take up the full screen of your application. In our dispose function, let's make sure to dispose of our banner ad and our interstitial ad. That way, if this widget does close or if the application does close, they will be cleanly removed from our widget tree. In the top of our build function, we can just call banner add with the cascade for the load method and then cascade to the show method so that we can perpetually show our banner ad at the bottom of our screen. And then where we have our button to reset our game, we can deploy the interstitial add when the user clicks the reset board function. So we'll turn this into a multi-line function. And then after we call the reset board function, we can then call the interstitial add, load, and show methods to show this advertisement. Let's load up our application and take a look at what these look like. Here you see our application, and here you see our new banner. We can click on the banner, and it will now open up to a little web view, which will then, of course, open up to the link that the banner is pointed towards, which in this case, because it's just a test banner, it's pointed towards the Admob website. When we click the Reset Board button, you can see that we now get this rather large full screen advertisement that pops up and replaces our entire application. And we can then close the advertisement by clicking the X at the top of the screen here, and this brings us back to our game. There are some nice features built into the advertisements for this particular plugin. For instance, you can see here that it says scheduling ad refresh after 70,000 milliseconds. This means that when I hit the reset board button again, it will not automatically show our interstitial ad. Instead, we'll have to wait for the 70 seconds before it will be able to pop up again. If we want our ad to load every single time the user hits the reset button, we can add a little bit of logic to our listener. So in here, we check to see if the event first is mobile event.failed to load. If it has failed to load, then we can just take our ad and call the load method on it with the cascade operator. Otherwise, if we get a mobile add event.closed, we can then take our interstitial add variable, call our build interstitial function recursively, and then call the load method on it, which will then prime it to be loaded again. So here, if I click the reset button, you can see we get this full screen ad. When I close it and click the reset button again, you can see we get it yet again. Alright guys, well I know this video was fairly basic, but there were a few people who requested something like this, so I figured I might as well oblige. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe and like. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the box below. And if you dislike the video, then by all means, downvote it as much as you like. Have a good night.